President Trump is pressing on with election lawsuits, even adding a new one just yesterday. This comes after he fired his administration's top election security official just last night. Christopher Krebs led the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency as director. The agency called the 2020 election the most secure in U.S. history, which the president is aggressively contradicting with unfounded claims. Weijia Jiang reports.
Department of Homeland Security official Christopher Krebs became the latest member of the administration to be fired by tweet. Last night, President Trump posted that he terminated Krebs as director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency.
You should have confidence in the integrity of the process.
Krebs has publicly defended the integrity of the November election. Just last week, his former agency signed on to a statement contradicting the president's baseless claims about election interference, writing, "There is no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised." Krebs's firing came as new election drama unfolded in Michigan.
This is a disgrace.
A public Zoom call turned tense after two Republican canvassers in Wayne County, which includes Detroit, initially blocked the move to certify election results.
Shame on you. Shame on you for leading to this level of corruption. You have disavowed your right to even sit in the seats that you occupy.
The canvassers claimed votes in the polling book did not match the tabulated votes, but officials say that discrepancy can be common when turnout is high, and it doesn't necessarily mean votes were improperly cast or counted.
You talked about not certifying Detroit, even though you acknowledged that Livonia, a city, by the way, I know you know is 95% white, had bigger variances than Detroit, which is 80% black.
The panel ultimately changed course, unanimously certifying the presidential results. Still, President Trump praised the attempt to challenge the results, tweeting, "Having courage is a beautiful thing." The Trump administration has refused to cooperate in the transfer of power to President-elect Joe Biden. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell claimed the transition would be smooth despite the delay.
We're going to have an orderly transfer from this administration to the next one.
And on the floor of the Senate, Republican Lindsey Graham, who has not publicly acknowledged the election results, joined other senators congratulating Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. On Tuesday, Biden met with his own national security experts as the president continues to block access to government officials.
I've been unable to get the briefings that ordinarily would have come by now.
So for more on the firing of the nation's top election security official, we want to bring in Major Garrett. So Major, as I understand it, Chris Krebs was not stunned by the fact that he was fired. He was kind of almost half expecting it. But you spoke to him last night, and you also featured him on your podcast, The Takeout, in August. What did he tell you?
He told me that he expected to be fired and that he stands by everything that he has said publicly and all the work he's done for the entire length of this administration on election security and integrity, and that he has no regrets. And Anne-Marie, it's important for the audience to understand what he did. Remember, in our country, states run elections. And after 2016, and even before 2016, when the agency that he leads, Chris Krebs leads at the Department of Homeland Security, started to talk to state governments about election interference and foreign adversaries, they were a bit reluctant because they said, look, this is a state responsibility. We don't want the federal government overwhelming us or giving us directives or orders. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. The states have their own autonomy. And Chris Krebs, for 4 years, has worked with states, Republican and Democrat-led states, on putting together cybersecurity defenses and limiting disinformation, misinformation, hacking, and the like, to create systems that are not only resilient about that, but that are verifiable and publicly transparent. And all the systems that Republicans and the president are now suggesting have somehow gone awry or miscounted votes were thoroughly tested and thoroughly evaluated before this election. And that happened in full public view. And anyone who had a question about these systems of counting votes could have raised questions then. They didn't. They could have brought legal challenges before the election, and they did not. They're only doing it after the election when the votes were counted, and guess what? The president lost. That's what is at the heart of his discontent. It's not at the heart of his allegations, because there are no credible allegations. Don't take it from me. Take it from every single court in which either sympathetic Republicans or the Trump campaign has put forward litigation. Every single court so far has said there's nothing here. There's not a single legally viable challenge to a single vote cast in the 2020 election, because there's no evidence to suggest they were miscounted or systems went wrong or anything at all. So Chris Krebs is essentially being fired for building a system that is secure, transparent, and verifiable, defending that system, and telling the public the allegations raised by the president have no merit. That's actually what his job requires him to do, but he was fired because of it.
So, yeah, and people should know that when we talked about the statement that was released saying that this was the most secure election sort of ever, it wasn't just his department saying that. There were others that co-signed on that statement. And I know you said he's essentially being fired for doing what his job is. I'm wondering if he was told directly the cause for his firing, because it sure does look like sour grapes. I'm wondering if he was given a particular cause or if he was just basically told, we no longer need your services.
He was told nothing. He received notification, as the rest of the world did, via Twitter. That was it.
Wow.
That was it. And it's not an uncommon experience,
but it's
yeah. But this has happened before. But it is shocking that this person, remember, he's not a never-Trumper. He's not a pro-Trumper. He's a professional government official doing this work. He's done it for the entire length of the Trump administration. And it's not as if the Department of Homeland Security, Anne-Marie, hasn't had a tumultuous ranks of leadership at the top. There have been 3 different secretaries of the Department of Homeland Security, some acting secretaries for some period of time. Chris Krebs was always there. If he was a problem, trust me, the Trump White House would have gotten rid of him. He wasn't a problem. He was doing exactly what he's supposed to do on behalf of the agency that he leads and the country he's trying to protect from election interference, and to build out systems that are resilient, transparent, and verifiable. He helped do that. And then when the president made, this is true, folks, baseless, groundless assertions that there was something wrong with the election systems, the vote tabulations, things they have not even come close to proving in court, he said, you know what, that's not true. That's not true. And as the leader of this agency, I am duty-bound to inform the public of its untruthfulness. And that's what got him fired.
So, a secure election should be a bipartisan point of pride. Firing the guy who is responsible for ensuring the secure election should be soliciting bipartisan outrage, I would think. What are we hearing from Capitol Hill?
So a lot of Democratic statements have come out in defense of Chris Krebs and the work he's done. When I spoke to him last night, I said, have you seen a Republican statement in support of you? And he said, not yet. I said, do you expect any? He said, probably not. Because he believes there is a political atmosphere in which Republicans are just trying to play out the clock, be as quiet as possible, not to antagonize President Trump, not to get on the wrong side of his political fury and have it directed at them, and just try to get this process finished, a transfer of power, with as little political damage to them individually as either members of the House or members of the Senate. But they know the truth. They know what Chris Krebs has done. He has testified repeatedly before Congress. He has taken every call and every meeting from both Republican and Democrats in the House and the Senate. Republicans know what Chris Krebs did. They know for how long he's been doing it. They also know full well that after the midterm election in 2018, which had very high turnout, the highest turnout in a midterm election in nearly 100 years, and all the systems were resilient, verified, and transparent, that Chris Krebs could have said, you know what, I'll go to my life in the public sector, a private sector rather. I'll cash in. I'll go get another job. He didn't. He stayed for the 2020 election because he knew how important it was. And he stayed with the sufferance and support of this White House until, as I said, he told the truth.
So listen, Major, we've seen a few high-profile firings. We've seen some people resign as an expression of outrage over those firings. There's certainly a shuffling of the deck in some key positions. How does this impact Biden's transition team from a national security perspective?
So it's probably not been too damaging so far, but the longer this goes, the more limited is the ability of the incoming Biden transition team to get a good read-in from the current administration about what it's thinking, what its plans are, and what has been the overall reaction of both our allies and, to the degree it's detectable, from our enemies. It's not catastrophic because the truth is the approaches of these two administrations will be fundamentally different. The Biden transition team, if it were to sit down with the Trump administration, would not have a productive conversation, for example, about the Iran nuclear deal, because they have diametrically opposed points of view on that. Same thing about rejoining the World Health Organization, or dealing with trade, or dealing with the Paris Climate Accord. These administrations have no commonality on those issues at all. So those conversations would not be that productive. But as the president moves to reduce troop levels in Iraq and Afghanistan, this transition team should be read in on that. What's the thinking? What's the timeline? And what are we, A, believing we will achieve? And what are we worried about in the aftermath? Those are conversations that ought to go on. That they're not going on is a systematic effort by the current administration to undermine the ability of the incoming administration to succeed, which is something President Obama said he would not tolerate. The transition began. The transition teams worked together closely throughout the process when he was incoming President-elect Trump. The one thing about President Trump that has been true throughout, he considers himself a unique president, not part of the string of the presidencies. And he's acting exactly that way.
Yes, these are uncommon times, Major Garrett. Really happy to have you here this morning. Thank you so much.
Sure.